So now we have this graph of this, well, what's clearly a trig function, and our task is to figure out what the function is. So let's look at this. The first thing I do when I look at something like this, I want to figure out its period and its amplitude. So what's its amplitude? That's always an easy one. So the amplitude. That's right, the amplitude. The amplitude, well, that's just how much does it move up and down, above and below the x-axis. Well, the amplitude here is how much it moves up x-axis. Well, it moves up 1/2 above and below the x-axis. So the amplitude is 1/2. And keep in mind, the amplitude is not this whole distance. It's not this. It's just how much it moves up above or below the x-axis. So in this case, the amplitude is 1/2. And then we have to figure out what the period is. The period is how long does it take, how many radians does it go through for it to go through one complete cycle? Well, if we start here and we were to follow the graph, it doesn't take until right here until we complete one cycle, right? Because here we're still going down and now we go below, so we're not repeating it. And here's where we start repeating again. And then we start repeating again here. So every pi radians, we start the cycle over again. It happens the same if you go backwards into the negative radians. So the period is pi, right? Period is pi. And you can start from any point. You could start from this point, and if you go follow the graph and then come back to the same point again, we see once again that the period is pi radians. Now we have to figure out if this is a sine or a cosine function, and for now we'll not think about shifting. So let's think about what happens when, we want to know what this function is. F of x is equal to question mark. Well, we see that f of 0 is 0. F of 0 is equal to 0. What does that tell us? Is this a sine or a cosine function? Well, what's cosine of 0? Well, cosine of 0 is 1. And what's sine of 0? Well, sine of 0 is 0, and this function is 0. So we know that this is a sine function. So we know the formula is going to take the form f of x is going to equal the amplitude times sine of 2 pi over the period x. And if we just substitute these numbers we just figured out, we know that f of x is equal to 1/2 sine of 2 pi over pi x. The pi's cancel out, and we get f of x is equal to 1/2 sine of 2x. Now, just out of curiosity, let's define another function. Let's define g of x is equal to 1/2 cosine of 2x. What would have this looked like? Or what would have, the grammar's a little difficult. So I picked the wrong color because f of x is actually the pink one. This is the one we have now. The g. So actually, let me circle that. This is f of x. F of x is this one right here. And now g of x, I'm going to do. So when x is 0, what is g of 0? Let's put 0 in here. So this whole term will become 0. What's cosine of 0? It's 1. And 1 times 1/2. So g of 0 is 1/2. So we would start here. And then we would have, just like this sine function, we would have a period of pi, because it has the same coefficient here. So this will just look like this. I think you get the point. It's just like the sine function, but it's just shifted to the left a bit. Well, I'm getting confused on this side. Ignore this. But if you look at this side, the important thing to realize is that it intersects the y-axis at not 1, but 1/2. And the reason why it doesn't intersect it at 1, even though that cosine of 0 is 1, is because we have this 1/2 coefficient right here. I guess you can't call that a coefficient. I guess it's the 1/2 times the cosine function. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more of a sense of, if you just looked at a graph, being able to figure out its equation. And I'll actually do one more video where we'll actually use the Khan Academy trig graphing module to figure out a couple more. See you soon.